administration, to our teachers and our CSEA members, our administrators, our cabinet members, and from our board on how we are going to run our school district for the next couple of years. And we have a lot of challenges that we are facing, and we cannot do this on our own. So I would like to open the meeting and call to order. Lisa Marks, are you here?
Yes.
Elizabeth Martinez?
Present.
Steve Kane?
Present.
And I'm here, and Carla is on her way. So let's do the flag salute. Diego, you want to start us off, please?
Sure. Place your right hand over your heart. Salute pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's Carla just for a moment.
Yeah. Like to get approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Before we start our discussion items, Lisa, will you kind of give us some the best way of doing this with our audience?
Are you referring to the brainstorming?
Yes, how the best way to do our brainstorming?
Okay. I feel, okay, the best way to do
Can you
brainstorming.
speak up just a little bit?
Okay, is this better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the best way to do brainstorming is to encourage, and there is no, any kind of creative answer, not self-edit, there's no judgment. We want the biggest pool of possible things to choose from in order to get down to the best choices, if that makes sense. So feel safe. There's no right or wrong kind of suggestion. That's the best way that brainstorming can happen. And is somebody going to be capturing the ideas?
The meeting's being recorded, so we have a transcript of it.
Yes, we have a transcript of the meeting.
Okay.
And we do, I see there's a board over there. If we wanted to start to write something, we can.
Okay,
But
yeah, I just know that the best ideas come when we allow all ideas without judgment.
So all ideas are open, no judgment. We're here to just get out some ideas so that no one feels any intimidation or retribution. We just want the ideas.
Correct.
And that's the most important part of tonight. That's what it's all about. And so again, that's the purpose of the meeting. First, the challenges of year 2 of the pandemic. And I think I want to start with Angela, because she sent an article today and then the governor spoke today. We're all over the place on the challenges of year 2. You want to bring up what you read today?
Basically, it was a Washington Post article, and it mentioned the increasing prevalence of the UK variant, what is it, B1117, amongst children, specifically in youth sports, that they are passing it to each other. It's increase of, it's more contagious amongst children, and while they still don't get very sick from it, they are bringing it home to their parents and the other adults in their lives, and people are dying because of what they have caught from the kids. That, and the other article I sent with that was from March 27th, Washington Post, where they stated that San Benito County on that date had 8.9% of its population vaccinated. So if we put those two things together, I think we need to stay very open-minded about what next year looks like. We, the idea of coming hell or high water back to school might not be what's best for our community, is all I'm thinking.
And then the governor today said that June 15th, everything's open. We're gonna go full tilt.
Hell or high water.
That's right.
Unless the
So,
cases go up.
yeah, well, I think that, I think when I say this, I think we just don't know what's gonna happen. And we just have to be mindful of that and be prepared to change if we have to change.
That's even in the next, I'm gonna have to.
Yes.
That's even, I'm even thinking in the next month, like, we don't know what's gonna happen, with.
Yeah, we don't know
cases.
what we don't know.
We don't know.
I think that's a fair consensus. We don't know what we don't know. And so tonight, as we speak, I want you to feel free to speak. And that is definitely the challenge of year 2. The governor expects, this was him today, that as of June 15th and further on, he wants even the universities, everybody open, 100%. He wants to see the schools totally open. Everybody, I mean, from businesses to schools, to entertainment, everything is open full board. Of course, unless, things change because of the scientific, something happens. But that's what his expectation is. So, as an entity of the state, I guess we have to make, Diego, is that correct? We have to make our assumptions the same. Yes?
It depends on the guidance, so
Right,
we currently have guidance for the remainder of the year.
that's correct.
They've changed the guidance on us multiple times, so there's a bit of it, what Carla said, it could change tomorrow, we don't really know.
Right,
So we just remain connected to the Department of Education and to the Department of Public Health. But I think the governor's sending out a very strong signal that his administration is gonna move towards reopening fully. And that may be a mistake, but that's what it is.
well, yeah. And I think that we just have to be careful and we have to really follow what's going on. Now, I think we know, I'd like some people from the audience, like, what do you think we did right? Anybody have some ideas of what we did right versus other school districts?
Every single child in our district had a device, and those who needed the hotspot got the hotspots. We didn't have the problem of kids not being connected.
Right,
That was our number one, and, so thank you Superintendent Ochoa for that, making sure that happened.
and I noticed as the school year went on, there were no disruptions. From when we first started, there were some disruptions and stuff, but then it was really smooth.
Let's also not forget about the meals program. How many
Yeah, kids got fed,
children we were able to feed over the.
and during the
worst
summer,
times of it.
during the summer, the children were fed. That was a big deal. Yes,
I think the flexibility that the district had with the teachers, can we teach from home, can we teach from the school site? When you guys were, when we together decided on what needed to happen, and you guys were very flexible with the teachers, made it very helpful, and let people stay home if they needed to, let people use the school's facilities if they needed to, and it wasn't rigid, or no, you have to do this.
Mhm.
And I think when we work together, I think we can get a lot of stuff done, and we
Yeah.
did.
that was
We really
positive.
did. And also, one more thing, if something happened where we go hybrid 2 weeks from now, they say, you gotta shut it down, we're already ready to go.
That's true.
With zero trouble. So we have
Yeah.
that going.
We are ready that way. We are ready that way. Jason?
I think pursuing attendance and early truancy was a big thing with administrators, teachers, and the distance learning liaisons. I think everybody worked together really well to make sure that we were getting as high an attendance rate as we could, and that's been generally pretty consistent throughout the year. I think district-wide, it's been very good.
Yeah, yes,
Our instructional aides have stepped up big time. These folks have done basically a different job. They have been doing a job that is not their job. They've been calling families, they've been delivering food, they've been tutoring, they've been doing reading groups. I mean, our instructional assistants have been incredible.
like, I can say that for Charlie's classroom, I know that for a fact. I see it every day. So, yeah. I just think, just watching every day from my side, I can't believe what goes on. And the hard work that everybody is doing, it's incredible. Yes,
Our teachers have been incredible.
Yep.
My child's teacher has 24 kids every day, on time, ready to learn, connected, engaged, supported, personal, social, academic, reading, footsteps, Eureka, benchmark. I mean, she's incredible, and she is not alone. She works with a bunch of teachers that care about these kids.
Diana?
I will agree with that. Teachers being flexible and just the Google platforms that they've mastered, the creativity in their lessons that are so engaging. It's incredible to see what they've done since last March. Pretty awesome.
Yes, Gwen?
Our special education staff have done everything above and beyond since day one that we shut our doors in spring of 2020. We provided a lot more services compared to the other districts within our region. And they did as much as they could to make sure that services are provided to the extent possible. So I really applaud our special education teachers, service providers, school psychologists, paraprofessionals, instructional assistants. I could go on and on and on. And even our site administrators who even went out of their way to go to the houses of our students with special needs. Even Noelia, you know, our transportation, basically, I could just say she's the expert when it comes to transportation. Who basically went to those houses of students who cannot access distance learning when we were all groping in the dark back in spring of 2020. They all went out of their way to go to their houses, deliver packets to make sure that our students with special needs have equitable access to their education and to the services. So every time I think about that day, Jan, I get goosebumps.
Yeah.
Just like what Diego said, we have amazing staff and administrators here in our district.
Diego?
Our office staff and technology staff have deployed 4,500 new computers in 10 months. So that means they call the family, they arrange for a time, they do so in a way that protects the family's health and their health. They intake the form of what the family has, they ask if the family needs anything, they get them their device, their charger, and out the door. There are entire schools in this district where every single child already has a brand new computer, less than a year old. I'm telling you, that is unusual. We are among a small group of districts that are not efficient. But it's because secretaries in this district have stepped up, and your technology staff has been extraordinary in being organized, efficient, focused. When we get deliveries, we'll get 1,000 computers in one day. Within 3 days, they already have a communication to the school site. We're bringing you 50 on this day, here's the list. So it's just been great to see all these people work with each other so that when our teachers are trying to teach their children, if you remember the first 2 weeks of school, it was bumpy because we had a lot of old devices out there. and you had teachers with 26 screens and trying to show, they had all these kids bumping out every 30 seconds. I mean, it was sad actually, it was really, like, it told us how much we needed to focus on it. But I feel like we turned on a dime, and at that point, everybody figured out, we all have to help in this regard. And so I just want to point out our office staff is doing incredible.
So I guess, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
Well, I was gonna say, I think the challenge then next year is how do we continue to use the Chromebooks in the classroom and in a way that will enhance instruction, and do it, you know, because we didn't rely on them before in the lower grades. So how are we gonna incorporate that in our curriculum? Because I know in the middle school we did use them, but in the lower grades, I don't think we did. So that's gonna be the challenge is how are we gonna do that? Because I think it did enhance the lessons, and I do know that for a fact watching Charlie, you know, to see someone with special education needs be able to do the things that he can do, you know, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Angela.
I was, you know, Jason had mentioned the attendance and how, you know, we got the kids showed up, but really, who did we didn't call the kids, we called their parents. And
Right.
it was that we've had a phenomenal amount of parent support this year,
Yeah,
and a phenomenal amount of parent, you know, like, educators, you know, in their homes, like, they became educators this year out of sheer necessity, and, they learned a lot more about their children's education from this experience, and so they get to participate differently in the future. So I think that's very much a positive. And also, as far as the younger grades, we've been itching to use more computers in the classroom. And now that every kid's gonna have a device, that will be, and we don't have to spend the time training them how to use it, because they know,
right.
it'll be able to take off.
I think one of the things we have to do is purchase carts. Diego. We're gonna need carts for the lower grades. Do we have those purchased yet?
We own cards.
They have their own computer.
Yeah, well, they're gonna have to have carts in the classroom so that, because they have the computers now, they need the carts.
We'll need more carts, but yeah, we already have carts, but yeah, we will need more.
Yeah, because they have to be stored so that they can be charged and, yeah, they're gonna need carts.
We're not sure quite yet, you know, if we're gonna, you know,
Right.
what next year looks like. The fact that they each have their own device and they can go back and forth with it at
Right.
home.
Right,
So it's just a matter of learning the, you know, to make sure that it's charged, but, because even the high schoolers we have to anticipate having all these strips or charging connectors, you know, for these kiddos that forgot to charge it overnight, you know, they come to class and they got a dead computer, and we don't want any swapping of computers right now, right? We want them to stick to their own computer and not share or do all of that, so we wanna make sure that that's still, you know, capacity to utilize for next year. I think just out of resources and just safety to ensure, you know, that continues, I think overall health for everybody is something that we just have to maintain at the forefront of, you know, educating our kids, and it's just learning that part that I think there's been so many great things learned from this that I don't see us really going back to a traditional type of setting in a classroom. And it'll be something that hopefully, you know, it's an evolution of in education, and, you know, things that teachers can now utilize with our kids that they've never been able to do before.
well, it's Carla and then Steve, and then there was a key word or phrase, evolution in the classroom. It's kind of a phrase that I think teachers are gonna be motivated to talk about. Go ahead.
I think one of the learning lessons too with the devices and the computer laptops was that, and looking forward, and if there's a way, I know we're gonna talk about the money, but is to not just be a one and done, we bought these devices, done, because as we know, technology evolves and So, and if we're gonna use it in the classroom to talk about, the future, how much do we set aside every year for new devices, programs, whatever, so. And that's exciting that the little ones get to use, and, everyone, they all should have access, especially in this new, hopefully new way, right?
That kind of addresses what I was going to say. One thing I was shocked about when we started this is apparently, from what I've heard, there are a number of students that actually prefer distance learning to being in the classroom. There are some teachers, not many, but some, that also would prefer not to be in the classroom. They would rather teach distantly. I don't think we should shut this avenue off. No, because we don't know, the pandemic could come, another pandemic could come. I hate to bring things up like that, but I would like to see us have a program that continues in our district that just deals with distance learning and allow that option for students and teachers in the future. I think it can be done, and not only could it be done, it would also keep us prepared in case we do go back to another pandemic. We'll be more ready next time.
Are you suggesting like keep RISE or keep a distance?
Something like RISE. We'd have to look into it because I don't know how many people would be interested, or whether it would be financially wise to do that, or if it is, then I would definitely think that if we have enough people that are willing to participate, I don't think it should be taken off the table as, don't use.
Well, we had a parent that we had from R.O. Hardin talk very highly about Ingenuity, was very, very happy with what she saw out of that.
That's the RISE program.
Through RISE, I believe. And
Yeah.
so, and it, right now it's the same program being utilized at the high school. So I see it as just another part of, or program that we have on our plate, a menu, and that's what makes our district so desirable, because we have so many options for our parents to pick from.
How about the lower grades? Anybody here, you think that's a good idea for the lower grades? Christina?
There are some programs like we've been doing, the PATH online, and because, we've been able to have those small groups, and that's something that, not this space is an issue. But kids could be in small groups within their classroom on headsets and participate in speech and language, as well as things like PAP or small groups. And it can be done remotely.
As long as we get the headsets?
Yes.
Because the microphones and the headphones are super important for those.
And the noise canceling, so like those gamer headsets work really, really well.
So what grades are those, Christina?
We've been doing PAP K through 5.
K through 5?
Yeah.
I do want to add that I think the RISE, if we're adding in what worked from, so just transparency, I have family that is in the RISE program. So I talk to my nieces and nephews, hey, how's it going? And they were excited to hear the other day, their teacher told them, we get to keep RISE, and they were so happy, because this is for those families that either you're working parents or you're not feeling safe, being in person, and the students, and in this case, they're my nieces and nephews, they were so happy because it's worked for them.
Yeah.
So,
They're out there.
So there are people that this has worked for them, and they are hoping, and they were told that this would continue, so they're really happy about that.
So, from your experiences talking with parents, should this be something that we should be focused on for next year? Is virtual learning, maintaining the RISE, or venturing out with PATH? What you called it? Is it Pathways or just PATH?
It's an acronym for Preventing Academic Failure. It's a really intense phonics program that, for teaching reading, spelling, and then, the foundations.
And Gwen, is this good for special ed students or?
It's the intervention program of our gen, and for special education, we're utilizing something else, but it's still based on structured literacy approach.
It's the same OG.
Yeah.
Orton Gillingham.
Okay.
Okay. So it's all part of that.
Yeah, it blends very well. So some of the kids that are in RSP that are in special ed, they're getting the same strategies that have.
But that's done you would give that in class, it's not necessarily a virtual,
Doesn't have to be,
no,
It doesn't
so
have to-
somebody,
It doesn't have to be, but if it's within small groups, if it's within small groups, the small groups can meet in their class, and stay in their classroom with their headsets.
I understand what you're saying, okay. All right, but it's not a virtual program,
No, it doesn't have to be.
right, okay. Whereas the RISE would be something that we could think about. Well, let's look at our 3 branches of funding. I'd like, Mr. Ochoa to kind of help guide us through this.
Can I say something about, before we move on? It's something about what we can do better.
Oh,
You
yeah,
didn't-
for
You
sure.
didn't get to what can we do better. I wanna get to that.
Okay,
I have to admit that over the last couple of weeks, I have been disappointed with some of the things that have been happening. And I'd like to address especially what's going to happen when we come back to school on Monday. There are, when we came up with the plan of coming back, we overlooked, and I personally want to apologize for that, the equity involved with the kids that are on the distance learning that do not want to come back to class for the rest of the school year at least. I felt that that was a mistake that I feel sorry for, and I would like to talk about how we can make that better for everybody. I think it would be a mistake to change anything that the classified and certificated we've negotiated with in the memo of understanding. So we really can't change anything there. To me, the biggest problem was what I just mentioned. So how could we address that? And I gave that some thought, and the thing I could think of was that those kids are gonna miss out on about 70 hours of school. That'll be 7 weeks that they won't be, and that's assuming that we won't have to go back. To Angela's point earlier, we don't know. We could go back up to purple. We don't. We might have to go back anyway. So if we don't, what do we do with those kids, students that have missed out on those 70 hours? We already have in place a wonderful summer school program that we want to encourage as many kids to participate in as possible. It has some wonderful curriculum, which we've talked about. It's, as I calculated, around 75 hours if you went to summer school. So I would like to propose or make available to those distance learners that have lost that 70 hours, that they have a guaranteed spot in summer school if they want it. They can make up the 75 hours. Those 75 hours will make up for the 70 hours that they missed in those 7 weeks. For those that don't want to go in person, and this is the real key to this, why not have a virtual summer school too? Why do we just have to have one? Why can't we have both? Why can't they have the option, either sign up for the virtual or come to the in-class portion of summer school? That way they can for sure make up those 75 hours. And anybody else that wants to get extra help over the summer can participate in the summer school program as well. I can't think of any way that would be more equitable to everyone. We don't have to change anything we've already agreed on, and we can give this to those distance learners that had missed out on that 70 hours. So I'm just throwing that out to see what people think.
Any bad, good, indifferent? So we would have two summer schools. We'll have the regular summer school with the brand new curriculum. And then we offer up a virtual summer school. Obviously, I don't think we could use the new curriculum because that's pretty much
That
hands-on
would be,
stuff.
we have, 7 weeks or no, 10 weeks or 8 weeks to think about how we want to run the virtual summer school.
Right. Elizabeth?
I had a parent ask me, what our plans were, to start next school year. And what did it look like for a teacher, right? So if you taught 3rd grade, these kids are going into 4th grade next year, but how much can we really assess that they lost this year? And do we reteach the first 3 months of 3rd grade or kind of reinforce those key points that they may have lost, right? Before we actually start pushing them into the 4th grade curriculum. And that was her idea. And I thought, I don't know, but let me ask. So what that would look like, as educators yourselves, knowing what you saw this year, what that next year, the beginning of next year would look like for our kiddos, right? Because our focus isn't going to be retaining anyone, but we know there's loss. So how do we support them right at the beginning so that they're ready to go into the next grade, right? A little bit more confident.
So teachers are already talking about this. And at the elementary level, specifically, our minds go to the foundational standards. And those are what we would focus on and see where the kids are at. And it would be like any year, some kids come in on target and some kids come in behind, and you figure out what they're missing and you try to fill in those holes as you go. My first thought, and I'm sure if I think more about this, I might come up with a different perspective, but my first thought is we need to be careful not to spend too much time on what they've missed, like on all of what they've missed, which would then lead to this cycle of always missing, right? So we have to be careful of that. Right. Yeah. So, but if we focus on the foundational standards, if we really dive in and pinpoint the necessity that, of each year, then we can make sure that they get that and then add to it from there. So we have to just like we did this year, we have to prioritize.
Because that would be a standard district. I would want all of, everyone at every school this is what we're gonna do the first 2 to 3 months of school is really focus here, and then we move forward. But that's why I wanted to bring it up in conversation.
I'm just gonna say, I don't think our absenteeism is not high. Our kids are coming to school. We do have some pockets of maybe some children that might be a little weak. But if you were to look at the scope of our kids, I don't think they've lost that much. Yes, I am a very positive person and I do look at things as the glass half full. But our absentee rate, every kid it's not like we had children that didn't have computers. They were online. Our administrators were making sure that kids were coming to school. I mean, all of this played in, and it just makes me, to me, feel, and being at home watching a very needy special ed student who's doing double digit subtraction, addition, reading and writing, I just don't think they lost that much. Now, not everybody got everything, and that's true of every year.
Right.
We have to put it in perspective of every year. Because we have children that sometimes, for whatever reason, they don't get it that year. So there will be a deficit, but I don't think it, for our school district, because we took care of the kids so well, I just don't think it's gonna be that bad, yes.
Hi, my name is Jillian Wilson, and I'm a community member.
Uh-huh,
I just would like to piggyback on what you're saying and remind us all here that the students this year had to learn a lot of things they don't normally learn in a
Right.
year. They had to adapt, they had to be flexible, they had to really be resilient this year. So there's a lot of things that they wouldn't normally learn in a regular school year that they have learned this year as well. So keep that in mind too when we're
Right.
having this discussion.
But I think to your point, John, I think, everything, we've done the best we can up to now. I think my worry is similar to what Steve was bringing up about these last couple weeks, where some of our distance learners are gonna get 1 hour a day. And those are, for me, I'm thinking, I'm worried about that. And I'm not sure, I don't know what you all think would be a way to catch them up, or do you think that they'll be okay? I don't know, I mean, I'm not an educator, I just worry as a parent, like, that was a hard decision as a parent to be like, I didn't want her to go back, but then when I found out, and I know I talked to a lot of parents, that were like, and I know some of the teachers who are parents were also struggling with, what do we do? How do we do this? So that's my worry.
That's kind of why I came up with the summer school thing. I think it will give them an opportunity, one way or another, whichever one they choose, to at least make up those 70 hours. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's the closest thing I could think of to where we're addressing their needs without redoing everything else we've done.
Yeah, I think that going back to what you said earlier in your plan, Steve, I would say that one step you might wanna do is to poll, survey kids and the parents in RISE. Then you take the kids TK through 7 who are staying on distance learning, who aren't part of RISE but are staying on distance learning for various reasons. And if you could survey all those kids and their parents and the kids in RISE and see what kind of interest you have, because you probably would have pretty good interest for a distance learning summer.
Yeah, and it gives the kids in RISE an opportunity for summer school themselves. And to me, the real key here is, the reason why we can't put them into the RISE program now is too late. They're not part of that class. You start summer school, you start new RISE classes.
Right.
And it's just for summer school. Then you can do whatever you want when the next school year starts.
Angela.
I also think we need to keep in mind that we would, when we went to the table, we were told that the focus on the reason we were going back in a hybrid model was for social emotional learning, was so that children can re-socialize, learn how to do school again. It wasn't a largely academic focus. And I think when we were offered that, the schedule where the DL were only going to get 1 hour, it's because of that.
Right.
It's hard to re-socialize distance learners when they're not going to be there.
Right, we don't wanna rehash this is.
I know, but I'm not,
Yeah,
but so if
I see
we
what you
keep
mean.
that in mind, that those 70 hours is
Yeah.
a re-socialization period.
I think it's good that you brought that up. I think
Thank
it's
you,
important for
Angela.
all of us to
Yeah.
understand that makes sense. And
Right.
even for the public, that's watching, 'cause I mean, we've
Yeah.
been getting a lot of from parents that are like, I don't get, but that makes sense, right? The hours, the instructional, academic, the other extra hours to address. So thank you for doing that.
As long as that's made clear to the parents though, because
Right.
that's not what I got when I listened to them.
yeah.
They were saying, they're missing out on 70 hours of academic work that these kids are getting and they're not.
Well, I'm not,
So it's a perception on what the parents
Right,
think as to what those 70 hours are gonna be about that they're missing.
and I'm not sure if all the schools, the administrators and teachers have like processed that. Because, we're a bunch of goody two-shoes, and, we all did, school is what we do, right? Giving up those academics, it's really hard for us, that's what we're hired to do.
Right, right.
We needed that processing time to come to terms with, all right, this is the second year, we're not really finishing the academics.
Yeah.
And we have to turn our focus, because, I went to a workshop last week, the best line, and this is gonna be my mantra for the rest of the year, is, oh my goodness, I totally blanked on it. That's terrible. Maslow before Bloom, right? Maslow before Bloom, good thing I wrote it down, it's so long. But, focusing on getting their needs met before moving them up on their instructional ladder, That's
Which a lot of that has to be done.
Yes.
We have a caller.
Yeah,
I just
go
wanted
ahead.
to wait for the right time, is now.
Yeah.
Lisa, are you able to hear the conversation that we're having here on the floor?
Yes, I'm hearing it and I'm nodding I'm nodding as appropriate and things like that. Yeah, I just haven't had anything unique to say beyond what you all have
We've
said.
got a
Just
phone
making
caller.
sure, just making sure.
Thank you.
All right, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, go ahead.
Okay. So I just wanted to speak to the grading and, or not grading, but, the academic worries and woes that teachers are having, or will have, and parents will have. But I think this is like the opportune moment for us to shift from an sole academic focus to a productive citizen focus, where we can tend to the social and emotional needs of our students. We can attend to their behavioral needs so that they are productive in society. And just because they didn't get straight A's doesn't mean that they're a failure. They can still coexist with their neighbors. They can still be productive contributors to our society. And so I think looking forward, teachers are going to meet students where they are. And this is a great opportunity for the inclusive practices that are essential for students to be productive and to flourish. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yes. Well, I think that the challenge that Steve has brought forward and is something that needs to be discussed with the administrators and the teachers is what would a virtual summer school look like? And how would it be put together? And so, as a consensus, should we say that they should move on to make a plan? Just a plan, we're not saying they're gonna do it, just to come up with some ideas and work together and.
As long as it's, aligned with what the in-person kids are doing. One of the workshop that I went to, one of the concerns about simultaneous instruction that we were warned about is, if you having in-person students do hands-on activities, then the students at home need to have something equitable to do the hands-on activities. They can't be forgotten at all. So if we're gonna offer a distance learning summer school, then we need
So
to
it
make
needs
it,
to be equitable.
yes.
Well, those packets need to be, it's forethought. There has to be planning and forethought so that
That's what I
those
meant about, we have
things
8 weeks to plan.
are there in their hands so that they can have those manipulatives to learn based
able
off
to do
whatever
that.
it is that kids are doing in the classroom.
Yes, I don't know your name.
Nicole.
Nicole.
Yeah, so I do Saturday school, Saturday Scholars, with the Migrant Ed program. And so I think that's a great model that you can use for this virtual summer school. They have manipulatives. They all got this Lego Spike program, and there's a Lego Spike application on their computer. and we build really cool robotic type stuff, and they do coding. And it takes a really long time to do, so they'll fill up the time. And it works, and we do SEL stuff, ELA stuff for an hour as well, so I think that's a great model. Yeah, it's all distance learning, yeah,
Awesome.
every Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind, something like that. I mean, really,
Especially if it's successful and our migrant kids are able to access those things and being, because a lot of, that's my worry when you were talking about certain kids, but I know my migrant kids, a lot of their grown-up siblings are the ones babysitting them, taking
Right.
care of them. There isn't a parent in the house. It's kids alone all day trying to do distance learning. They don't have a parent there. They're learning on their own or, grabbing a high schooler sibling, I don't understand. So there are a lot of families that have faced many, many challenges this year.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
that.
I'm sure.
Somebody, Christina,
To piggyback on what Nicole said, last summer we did have, the migrant program had a virtual summer school. And we did do the hands-on what they're doing now, which would be great, but we did have math and we had the ELA program. So we do have those programs, already, formulated, figured out.
okay, well, I think it's something that needs to be discussed, and looked at and see what we can do, because if we can get even more children, in summer
That
school,
would be
that's,
marvelous.
it's gonna just be better for everyone. Do we have another call?
We do have another caller.
Go ahead. Can you give their name?
Sure.
Yeah,
If they want to
well, yeah,
share
but
their name.
it'd be nice to know who we're talking to.
Hi there, I have you on speaker. Can you state your name if you would like to do so?
Yes, my name is Ashley Newman, and I wanted to give my 2 cents as a parent who started off here at Sierra Vista Elementary School with my second grader. I'm watching the meeting, which I think this is a fantastic discussion you guys are having, by the way, to go over problems with distance learning, problems trying to get equity for kids. It's great, and especially that the public is allowed to just call in and comment like this, because I think it's awesome. Anyway, I'm calling in because when I heard about, from President Grist, making comments about learning loss and that it's not been that great, I had to switch districts because of the severity of learning loss for my second grader in math. And obviously, every family is different. You can't make every family happy. I completely understand that. But to hear it kind of be dismissed that the learning loss is not that great, the changing of districts was an agonizing decision I did not make lightly, nor did I ever want to make the problem worse for my second grader. But the second we switched to a different school, in person for her, that 3 hours a day made every difference for my child. And we're finally at a point where she's catching up on math, because she got so far behind. Her teacher was gracious enough to come to our house to tutor. I mean, it makes me sad to have to leave Harvey School District. I live in Santana Ranch. I'm right by that brand new beautiful school. That I'm nervous to go back because I want her in person next year. And to hear that you guys are kind of not sure which way you're going to go because of a variant that is not affecting our county right now. We just moved into the orange tier. I just hope that decisions are made based on science of what's happening right now in our county, because those are the numbers that matter, is our county. So my whole reason for calling was basically to say that, and that I hope kids can catch up next year. I hope that learning loss is not going to keep kids behind for the rest of their school career. That's what I'm worried about. That's why I have contacted all of you board members, Superintendent Ochoa, so many times trying to get something in person for my kid, and I'm happy that now students get to go back. I just hope you guys are because the RISE Academy, I tried to get into RISE the second week of school starting in August, and it was completely full. And there was a waiting list. I couldn't even switch her because distance learning from day one was just like, oh my gosh. And I gave the school time, and I waited it out, and then October hit, and it still was distance learning, and it wasn't getting any better. In contact with her teacher, in contact with the principal, and I don't blame her teacher. I watched all the work her teacher put in, and how much she tried. But you guys talk about attendance as well, and how amazing it's been. Is every teacher aware of what's happening behind the screen? My daughter was crying during a math lesson, and the teacher had no idea. That's what's happening. Just because a student is logging on does not mean they are learning. What are the grades? That's what I want to know. How are kids doing academically? Because I don't ever hear about that at board meetings. And it's very interesting that that's never brought up to the public of how children are doing and thriving. And I want all kids to thrive in school, whether it's distance or in person. Like, if distance learning could have gotten better, we would have never left. We would have stayed. If I felt like I was being heard as a parent, as an advocate for my own child, we would have never left Sierra Vista. I have a kindergartner I signed up for, the school that we're at, and I just hope you guys are really listening to parents. I hear you guys saying, I had a parent say this, I had a parent say that. Where were you board members when I would email you that I had a parent say this, I had this parent bring this concern to me? I never felt heard, and I hope you guys are really listening to parents. And it's not just, we're being bulldozed. Because you talk about retention, and no, we're going to keep kids. Are you guys keeping kids? Are families trying to transfer out because they're not being heard? I'm glad that I finally got to call and speak this in a public forum, because everything I've done is behind the scenes or in public comment, but to hear me speak about it in my tone of voice and the frustration I felt from the Hollister School District, it's just, I don't understand, like, why we're here now. And now it's a big deal that, it's not fair to distance learning kids. When was it ever fair for all kids? For the kids struggling in distance learning, and there was no in-person option until now in April. So that's what I wanted to say tonight. Thank you for letting me speak, Superintendent Ochoa, and I hope you guys really listen to parents now who are in your district still, because I'm not a parent in the district anymore, but I still feel strongly for students struggling in distance learning, and just to hear it kind of be, like, there wasn't that much learning loss. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
Heard.
Thank you, Ms. Newman.
Thank you, Ms. Newman.
Okay, let's move on to section 5B, the 3 branches of funding. And Mr. Ochoa, if you would kind of go over this with us.
Sure. At the board's request, I created a chart that's simple for us to go over and discuss. It illustrates for the viewer the different sources of funding that the district has received or will receive. I want to start off by saying that as the pandemic has unfolded, we've been notified of funds heading our way. Because we are in California, I don't think I have to tell you all, they'll often give us a prediction of how much something will be, and then you wait 4 months and then it shows up and it's a little bit less or more. This chart is no exception, so please be reminded that these numbers are our best estimates based on what we've been told up until this point. So the first source of funding is what we call GEAR funding, or it's on the next page, there's sort of a very detailed explanation of what GEAR funding is. GEAR funding is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. This is the first bank of dollars that we got that we were able to assign for the purpose of addressing the pandemic. Specifically, what we were able to do was address learning loss or accelerate progress to close learning gaps. So as you know, our district was very early. We were one of the first districts in the region to acquire and deploy mobile hotspots to over 1,200 children in this district. That was a piece of forward-thinking, early, assertive action on our part. And it basically cost us $200,000 to do that. We used GEAR funds partially to pay for that program. And it really was the basis of being able to offer distance learning. At the same time, as you all struggled with in March and April, and in some cases all the way up through the middle of September, we had some old devices out there. We had 6, 7, 8-year-old Chromebook devices that would have these hiccups where you'd have a kid on there and they're off, on. So we went out and bought thousands of computers. We started off by using our big vendor, CDW, and every week there was a new delay. It was going to show up, Eventually, we actually started to go on Amazon and buy devices 40, 50, 60 at a time. So there was about a 5-week window where myself and our lead tech specialist and our business department were sort of in a 3-way email conversation with each other where we were just buying 30, 40, 50 devices at a time because there's a limit on how much you can purchase on Amazon. And we just figured it out. We addressed the most needy situations. We actually used our technology to find the computers that were having the most hiccups, and we specifically swapped those out. So it provided relief that people desperately needed at the time. And then when the big orders started to come in, we started to do bigger, kind of like all the middle schoolers or all the kids at Calaveras or Arlo Hardin. And in that case, we started to go a little bit more methodically, like grade level by grade level. But the GEAR funds were designed to meet those initial distance learning loss needs. The funds, $447,000 for a district with 6,000 kids, that doesn't go very far, so it was kind of like, was a bit of a kickstart for us to be able to do this. And I want to direct your attention to the second section, which is the Esser Funds. If you can turn to that page. Esser has a elementary and secondary school emergency relief. So you'll notice in the chart it says Esser and Esser 2. And the reason it has those two names is that it's actually two different allocations of funding. The first allocation of funding was a little bit under $1 million. It was about $880,000. And I basically combined them because the use of the funds is fairly similar, almost identical really. And what the Esser funds do is they come in, they're restricted monies, and they come in from the federal government specifically for addressing the needs of individual students, and they start to go a little bit more specific. Low-income children, children with disabilities, English learners, systems to improve and preparedness and response, sanitizing, educational technology. One thing that we were very early as a district to do, if you recall back in April, we got involved with FEMA and we were able to apply for some dollars to be able to purchase PPE at extremely reduced costs, 75% reductions in costs, which is it's been amazing to be able to be in that program. And we said, let's buy a bunch of containers. And so at each one of your schools, there's containers at every school, and we have been stocking those containers with PPE. We have 10 containers here at the district office that we've used to be able to stock PPE. 2 of them are refrigerated so that we can acquire all of the hand sanitizer and soap that can't be exposed to the elements. So it's gonna last us all year long, and they're completely stocked with supplies. And when they call us, and we get calls on a regular basis to say, hey, the United Way donated 6,000 masks and 40,000 pairs of gloves and 6 pallets of soap, would you like some? I send a truck. Some superintendents go, oh, let me call this person, let me call it. I say, Isaias, drive the truck out and go pick it up. And we come back with truckloads of PPE, and if you recall, they used to be in here. Before we got the containers, do you remember we had all the boxes? This place looked like a storage. There were boxes all over the street. You remember the whole side of the room? So we've been lucky to be able to use some early strategic thinking to be able to set aside supplies and materials for the district. So these Esser funds, this $3.5 million, they're dedicated to reasons like this, and then look at the bottom. Discretionary funds for school principals to address the needs of their individual schools. Okay, so they're restricted, but the language is fairly open. So we, as a district, have to talk about, let's talk about this issue that came up about migrant summer school and migrant Saturday scholars. So a year ago, I met with our migrant education coordinator, Patricia Martinez, and we looked at a project called the DSA. It's a plan that's required for every district that operates a migrant education program. And in many districts, it can be sort of, well, take last year's, roll it over to this year, add a few things, move a couple of things here and there. And what I challenged her to do was I challenged her to think about what our children deserved as opposed to what we've always done. So we basically took $90,000 that we were using previously on other things, and we purchased the highest quality, most expensive Lego robotics equipment for kinder through 8th grade. And we said, we are going to equip our teachers and our children with the best equipment and see how they learn. And we have a teacher in front of us telling us, these kids can do it. These kids are engaged, they're proud to have a $200 box of Lego equipment that they code on a computer, build by hand, and then automate. And there's probably, 5% of school districts in California that would invest the amount of money we invested to do it. But we did it from the sense of, what is the best way to engage these children instead of, what did we do last year? Let's do it again next year. So the bottom list here of discretionary funds, the question is, what do our children need next year? Not what did we do last year or what did we do the year before, but for Diana and Antonio who are here with us, both of you have this brand new Paxton Patterson, which I think potentially could be a gold star program. But if you just kind of treat it like a, ho-hum class, I don't know what you're gonna really get out of it. But if you really put some juice behind it and put some funding behind it and put some training behind it and get these kids engaged and build a master schedule that facilitates using that program really well, then I think you might have a gold star program on your hands.
So do they get extra money then? Is that what you're saying?
They get whatever we decide they get. As
So
far
since
as,
they're here
well,
and the other
at
principals are
least-
not here.
These are our middle school principals.
You're gonna have, there's
I'm
gonna
always
be,
gonna stand up for middle
there's
school.
gonna be 8 principals getting tickets driving over here, flying over here saying, Diego, why did you tell me to log in online?
We're gonna start getting.
Yeah, no,
I
they're
say,
gonna
I
join.
told Lilia that I'd represent her. Wholeheartedly represent. Yeah, exactly.
What it boils down to though is, well, we have to decide what to do with money like this, because I want the public to know, the union to know, the board to know, the administration to know. The $3-some-odd million is not devoted to any particular purpose at this time. It's above and beyond, it's separate, it's in addition to, it's not obligated. I'm not saying I'm gonna spend $2 million on PPE, like I said. we've been very early and very assertive and very active in getting PPE for our district, so we're in a really unique place. The question is, how does it fit into the district's plan? Not what does one person think on one night in one meeting about
Right.
a program at their school. It's what is the big focus of what we're trying to do as a school district and where we're trying to get. The fact that we have the funding puts us in a really great position.
Question about this funding. Does it have a time period where it must be spent? Does it say like any other restrictions, like, you know, you can't use it for X thing? Is there any restriction like that? And is this an opportunity for each school to talk to their staff and the community about, like, these are our plans and the LCAP, you know, like, how do we, and you know how we're doing the community forums, like, is there a way to fold that in?
The funding is being received this year and has to be spent by August of 2023. So that gives us 2 years to spend the money. $3.5 million is really not that much money. It'll go pretty fast. Yeah, with the LCAP process, the design of the LCAP process is to engage families, stakeholders, unions, and our board in a process where we develop a plan to meet the district's goals. The purpose of it is to establish a culture where all voices are heard. Where a middle school math teacher might say, the most important thing you can do is to buy every student a Texas Instrument 89 calculator because we can't live without it. Well, those are $163 a pop, and we have 1,600 kids at our middle school, so that might not really kind of get us where we want to go, right? But the bigger question is, in our district's approach to our next 3 school years, not 1 year, 3 years, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to accomplish innovative STEM, reading intervention, ELD support? Because it's quite big when you see the whole big picture. And so the LCAP process is designed to pull ideas from all places. So the district held the superintendent's parent advisory committee meeting last week. We met with 10 parents who represent every campus in this district and gave them a challenge to show up to our next meeting, which is in a week, prepared to give us ideas. And we're here tonight with members of our HESTA bargaining unit, who I'm sure will have ideas to share with the board tonight. We also need to have a separate meeting with CSEA to engage our CSEA employees. Similar to my first year in the district, I'll visit every single school faculty meeting in the month of April and May to give every employee an opportunity to state to me and to give me their opinion on what we should be doing to focus on our LCAP. And then I'll compile everything and draft the plan for the board. And the board, in the month of May, will see the plan at our regular board meeting in May. The public will see the plan at our regular board meeting in May. It'll kickstart a 30-day process for the public to give input and for the district to respond to the public input to bring a final plan to the board in June.
So my question, because I know every school district is thinking about how to help, right, mitigate some of the learning loss, and the funding is there, being provided. So, because I know for the high school in particular, we struggle having kids stay after school in programs to help support them in any subject. We're struggling now, online, you know, in every form. So, so the idea now kind of being introduced is incorporating more. I know we pulled out instructional aids, but now it's the push in and providing that additional support for teachers that can really focus with these other adults, trained adults, to help these smaller groups really help with whatever, if it's reading, if it's math, if it's whatever it is that they're struggling with. So that we can provide the additional support while they're in school during those hours, in those subjects that they're struggling in, versus pulling them or retaining them after school, before school, or whatever, that makes it sometimes challenging, either for the child or for the parent. So it's just trying to be creative, how could we incorporate that support in the classroom during the day?
It's an interesting segue to the expanded learning opportunity grant, Liz, because what you just described is the bridge from wanting to help children during the school day in their classes, which the district could absolutely increase the number of instructional assistants that we hire into next year to rectify some of the layoffs, to backfill some of the reading intervention that we want. And then the district is receiving an additional $3.6 million in what's called an expanded learning opportunity grant. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, before we jump into there, on the Esser, and I know that that's gonna be, we haven't given Hesta time to talk about that on the Esser. But I would like to see some different after-school programs offered, you know, besides the tutoring that we always do, and help, you know, with math or whatever. But, you know, like a yoga class or dance class, art classes, something that we have kids there that they're being enriched in something, because we have a lot of kids that go home to empty homes. And then they can stay and have something. I'd like to see some of these funds used for something that would enhance their lives and make their life fuller. And I know that we have a program with San Benito Arts program, but I just think we need to start looking at trying to build fuller experience for our children. And I would like to see some of this money used in, you know, some programs that way to help children have a fuller experience at school. And make school fun. You know, do something, you know, maybe in clay, you know, things like that, yes.
You just mentioned it, like when I went to my elementary school, kids either had to do band or participate in a musical. And so that, having electives, even just at the middle school that are required electives, like that's what kids really show up for. That's what gives them the passion to show up to school. And I've just noticed that the students don't really have exciting elective opportunities. So that's definitely something we should consider as well, but I totally agree.
But even the little guys, you know, if they could, you know, have yoga or dance or something, just even if it's 30 minutes, and it gives them something to do, instead of go home and it's, you know, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It's just a thought, yes.
So, well, you know, we were talking about big picture, you know, and there is this concern about learning loss, which Hesta has to say, we don't necessarily agree that there's learning loss. A lot of us feel that a lot of our students have really just kicked, you know, tail this year. And also, that's relative, you know, learning loss is, my kid misses a couple weeks of school and everybody else keeps going. This is, everybody has missed, right, equally. So, but there still has been, the kids haven't gotten as much as they're used to. They're also very used to being home, you know, in an isolated situation. And coming back, they're gonna be coming back in small groups, you know, half a class at a time, maybe at the most, and that's going to be really helpful. But if by some chance everything works out, we get everybody vaccinated over the course of this, you know, spring and summer, and we open fully next August, that I think is going to be a shock to their systems, for one. And for two, it would make it more efficient and effective if we could focus on smaller groups of students in our classroom. We're going, and if we think about addressing that, are the housing going up in increased numbers that are going to come eventually, if not next year, they're probably not next year, but eventually. And then also understanding that, we have a lot of teachers that are not that far from retirement, in the next few years. If we consider investing in really shrinking class sizes, TK through 8 next year, and using the money to get at the foundations of all of that, of our problems, we could head off a lot of the problems, in the future. We could address a lot of the problems in the future. I know Jason had some, better verbiage than I did, so, let him speak on it too.
I can keep it short. There are 2 other things that we had talked about there, but in terms of class sizes, I'm thinking about school to prison pipeline, I'm thinking about social emotional welfare and pandemic readiness. And the one thing that checks all those 3 boxes, I think, is working on class size. Whether it's temporary in this case, I know we're talking with temporary monies here, but I would like to see a bigger shift, a more philosophical shift, because in the past, what the typical response was before this board and before our current superintendent, the idea was fill the classes, pay the teachers off with a stipend that isn't really commensurate to the extra work or the learning loss that happens there. And more importantly, does 0 for kids. Does a kid get a stipend? No. The kid sits there in a class of 35, squeezing into that crack of the school to prison pipeline and losing or gaining anxiety, right, and gaining stress because it's such a chaotic environment. And it makes us totally unready for a pandemic because now we're stuck in AM, PM, or cohort A and B, and they lose half their learning time. So I think the thing to me to look at is at least a little bit, it doesn't have to be a huge radical move, but definitely to look at class sizes, to look at helping all 3 of those things, I think.
So what do you think should the class size be, Jason?
Well, if I look at, for example, in middle school, right, like we know math is gonna be a little smaller because of special ed, you have RSP math in it. But typically like history and science, I don't know what they're running this year, but they tend to be the biggest. But if you took like, let's say on an average, if ELA average went from say 29 or 30 to even like 25, in terms of pandemic readiness, well, you got 25 kids. By our percentages right now, maybe 7 or 8 of them at least don't come back, right? Like they may, like if we were to be in this situation, like a hybrid, some of them would stay on distance learning. Well, if you're looking at 16 or 17 kids, you don't have an AM PM anymore, especially if the CDC keeps changing the repeat requirement. They're all there, and now you have double the time to teach. Or you add to distance learning, right? Now you have 2.5 hours of each, or whatever, and you're not losing all that. But that's at 25.
And it's added minutes, because we think passing out papers is no big deal. But, the difference between passing out papers to 25 kids versus 35 kids,
Well, you don't have
it
to tell
adds
me.
up. Like all those little things that add up that just take away from learning time,
You don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
Christina?
Well, I absolutely agree we need to lower the class size. And I know that, in the past, I've always taken that average, but I remember teaching 6th grade and 5th, 7th and 8th, they had electives. So they had smaller class sizes because they were spread out. I remember 6th grade teaching 38 students in each class, and that was normal. I remember teaching 40 kids in a 6th grade class because as they came up, the class sizes were lower in K through 3. As soon as they hit 4th, 5th, and 6th, bam, they went up. And it was just ridiculous. And that was average. I remember the first time I taught 30 kids, I thought that was just a miracle. So, I think you can't just say, average across the board. I really think you need to look at grade level to grade level, and, because it does make a difference, when they jump from 20-1 to 40, 35-1, it makes a huge difference.
I agree. Yes,
In regards to like the failure rate, like my 5th period class from this weird coincidence is 17 students. No Fs all year. I have such a deep bond with my students in 5th period. I love them, they're great. I mean, I love them all, but 3rd period has about like 33 students. And so, I mean, it's my class that has the most Fs. A third of them were failing. And I mean, it just seems this weird coincidence every year that my biggest class is not only the worst with classroom management, but also has the highest Fs. And like when we're working on an essay, like every step of the process, I'm there crouching down next to them, looking over their outline and what they have. And I can't get to every student in the class period. And I'm like, sorry, I'll have to get to you tomorrow. And if I don't remember to get to those 5 students tomorrow, because I'm getting to the ones who are raising their hands first, then Jimmy, for example, never gets my one-to-one help because I'm getting all the students who raise their hand first.
I'm very much aware of that.
Yeah, if we think about putting the investment in next year, making those class sizes really small so that we can turn on a dime, no matter what the pandemic throws at us. It would require plunking down portables at certain sites who are crowded, but we're gonna be plunking down portables anyway at certain sites in the next few years.
Yes.
And then we wouldn't really have to lay off when this goes away because we are going to get more students, especially when word gets out that we have smaller class sizes, but then we're also gonna get more students because of the houses going up, and then our teachers are going to be retiring too. So we can allow that attrition, is that the right
Yes.
word? Allow that attrition to take place, and where we just ease into that, ease back to normal numbers, but not too normal, So, it's not bells and whistles,
But it doesn't need to be though, Angela. I mean, these are
Get the
common
kids what they
sense
need.
things that, it's just a matter of, as a district, like Diego said, it's challenging all of our, processes. Just because we've done it this way doesn't mean that we need to continue doing it that way. And if there's something better, that we can definitely make an impact with all of our kids, because the ones that are quiet, that aren't gonna say a word, are the ones that are really just completely dying. And by the time they get to high school, a lot of these kids have given up. And there is nothing that any of us can do. It doesn't matter how much we encourage and push. When a kid gets to that level and they feel so just left behind by everyone, that they don't see themselves really being able to get out of that hole and be something more than we gave them the opportunity to be.
Yeah, pull the prison pipeline. There it is.
Okay, so I think can we now go on to the next, everybody's okay with us going on to the next one?
It's
Okay.
a great dialogue, the letter.
Yeah, this is what it's all about.
And I appreciate what you said about how like every year you've noticed, because it's not random. And you're seeing it every year with your largest, and I'm sure everybody has similar. So thank you for.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here. Okay, expanded learning opportunity grant, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you. Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant is designed to help school districts rehire laid off paraprofessionals and hire new paraprofessionals.
Hello?
In addition to other purposes, but it dovetailed with the comments that you made.
I, personally, this
coordinates with what we've been talking about as far as class size. To have an additional help, for instance, your class, the 33, you don't need help the whole day. You would like some help in that class, or reduce it, or at least get some help in it. I think this is where this comes into play. This is where we see where we are, where do we need help for teachers in certain places, certain areas, certain times. That's, to me, that's the advantage of hiring back these paraprofessionals, because I taught for 30 years. I know the difference between having one, and a competent one, and not having one. Makes all the difference in the world. Those people that the school to prison pipeline, believe me, that helps, especially if you have a quality aide. They can get, with 2 of you, you can get to those people every day. And that's the key, to try to have a dialogue with every student in your classroom every day. If you don't, you're asking for trouble. And when they started taking aides away, I thought that was a mistake. I know there was financial problems doing that, but the bottom line is they are extremely important people to have in a classroom.
Is it Ann, Jim?
Yeah, there's a comment here from Enrique Sendejas, who's the president of CSEA. And he wrote me and he said that one of the things that he wanted to make sure that we all knew is that he wanted to make sure that his employees, especially his instructional assistants, is that they were constantly getting the proper training so that they could do their jobs well and interact with their students properly, and that they also be brought back according to their contracts the way they should. So I want to add that in. Go ahead, Christina.
And I agree with that, because I'm gonna go back to CAP because I know it works.
Mm-hmm.
We have some phenomenal aides, and some of them
Professional, yeah, paraprofessionals.
They are professionals and they're phenomenal with the kids, and they do far beyond their job. And because of them, the amount we've had at Earl Harding, we've been able to lower the group size so that more kids are getting smaller groups that we can pinpoint their reading. And if you want to lower the prison pipeline, they have to know how to read. Read, that comes down to the very essence, that they know how to read. Reading is power. And if we can focus on K2, with that reading and that program, and lowering the class size with those aides and pinpointing reading, it will make a huge difference.
Yep.
And the other thing is that we noticed there at our Harding, that a lot of the aides we have trained, and they are highly trained, all of a sudden they get switched around randomly to another school, and it's like, we had one.
Yeah, that I have to agree that that is, I don't know, but that is something that we should as a district look at, because my grandson has the same aide as last year, and boy, what a difference it made having the same instructional, same paraprofessional, because my grandson, he teaches math and reading. Yeah, there's three little boys that this guy takes care of, and I gotta tell you, they're a handful, these little boys.
Can I ask a question about, I don't know how many paraprofessionals we have at each school site?
Well, I'm special ed, so
I'm just,
right.
off the top, and I don't know how many we can hire with this 3.
I don't know either.
So I would be curious, with you walking in, to know.
But my only concern, it's not just the hiring. My big part of all of this, or my big concern
is the training.
is the training.
Yes.
I want our para-educators to get the same level of training
Training.
that our teachers, either trained by our teachers so that they know what it is that they're going to be doing in the classroom to support
Right.
them, because
Is that what this funding will pay
you
for?
you can utilize it, and it's not just to hire, but a big part of it should be professional development. And
Yes.
it's gotta be just as, I mean, we're in the business of education. We educate our teachers, our administrators. We don't educate our classified, and I hate to see it. We don't invest there. So if we start to invest in
I
areas
have to agree with you.
that we need highly trained individuals to help support our kids, we will see it paid back 10 times over.
Yep.
So that's, to me, as a classified individual, believe me, I've learned to do what I need to do on my own. If I had just a little bit from the district to show me how much they care about what I do, a little ounce of respect to give me some training to do what I need to do that much better, you're giving it back to our kids. So the investment that we give to our staff, all of our staff, should be across the board to all of our staff.
To piggyback on what you're saying, speaking from experience, what I saw over the years, I think teachers also have to know the proper use of an aid.
I
I
agree.
think in the past, it has been, some teachers do a great job. They know exactly. These are trained people. They're not trained to go run off papers and things like that. They're there for a reason. They're there to help the kids. And a lot of times, some teachers got it, other teachers didn't, because they didn't really know how to use them either. And I can remember teachers, I don't want an aid. Which just dumbfounded me. Why would you not want to have help if you could get it? A trained professional in the classroom, paraprofessional in the classroom? So I think that has to kind of go with it. You're saying, let's train them to know what to do. Okay, fine, but the teachers have to know how to use it in the class. It's very frustrating for
hand in
aid
hand.
not to be used properly.
Right. So, and just like we spend time doing PD days before school starts, I would love to have our paraeducators be in those types of trainings that we know they're gonna be utilized, whether it's in ELA, whether it's in math and science, whatever. You know, I mean, if we go down this path of really inserting these people in those areas to really help.
Then I think to your question, I think it's a great idea, good point, and I'm wondering, is any of this funding, either this funding or any other ones, Diego, able to be used for even like all staff training, you know, at some point? I mean, these are just trying to think out of the box, like, we've talked about this before, and if there's money available, is that something we could do if people agree to, if this was a need?
Well, I'm kind of getting, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of getting a consensus that we would like to see the teachers and our paraprofessionals being trained, and then keeping them along. In other words, sometimes they get shifted all over the place, and kind of making them more of a partnership with either the school or the grade level.
Yeah, part of the team.
The team,
Right.
yeah, that's what we're trying to say here, instead of making them expendable, making them
They're
part of.
easily interchangeable, and I think that the districts always have that flexibility of being able to interchange classified wherever
Yeah,
they're
but then we
needed.
break up the team.
But see, with special ed, there's that continuity that
I'm
you
not
build that
talking special,
rapport.
well, but, yeah,
But it's being done in special ed as well, so when you
Right.
build that rapport with the kids, it's just like their teacher, let's just pop her out and put her over here and put this one. So we're talking about professionals that we
Well,
are.
I'm talking about culture here.
Right.
District culture. And I know what I'm talking about is very difficult to do, and I don't know if it's even possible. But the idea is the team building. The idea of team building our paraprofessionals, whether they be special ed or ELA or whatever.
Jan?
Yes.
Wouldn't, I mean, if we're
Speak
gonna
up
be
a little bit,
thinking,
Lisa.
okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. If we're thinking about, again, going back to the school to prison pipeline and all that goes along with it as far as creating this new culture, that kind of ties into it too, because if it's about the kids knowing the whole staff by name and the staff knowing the kids by name, that what you're discussing right now kind of lends itself to that as well, right? The school seems cohesive, and if you're lucky enough to go there from K through 5 or 6, then you or K through 8 and some of them, then you feel very much like it's another home as a child, and the parents do too. So I just think it lends itself to that as well.
Christina.
So, several years ago, if you look at the charter, the HPS model, they have their paraprofessionals as partners with the teacher. They train them very well, and they are integral to the classroom. And they don't train them all over the place. They train them well. I have to say this, they pay them well. We took on that model, Earl Harding. And we trained those aides, and they were fabulous. And then the next year, some of them got just shifted away, and it happens. And we would like to see that change. That if a paraprofessional is integral to that classroom, they have been trained that they stay in that classroom because, she's right. If the kids know their teachers, and they look forward to it. They look forward to, when I'm in 5th grade or when I'm in 3rd grade, they say hello, they know that you know their names. And it makes all the difference in the world for them.
Well, it's a cultural shift that I think we have to discuss, and it's a financial, it's something that's gonna have to be discussed. Yes.
So 2 things. One thing that's kind of coming to mind is the reason teachers don't get moved around like that is because we have contract language preventing that. And I feel like this is a discussion that needs to happen with CSEA and their bargaining team, if this is contract language that they would like.
Yeah, which we don't know.
Yeah, that's the, keeping that in mind. The other thing is, I just need some vocabulary clarification. Are instructional assistants and paraprofessionals, are those terms being used interchangeably?
Yes. Yeah, they are.
Were
They're
you
pretty
doing
much the same.
interchangeably, or I got two
They're
answers.
the same. It's the same individual. We just use them interchangeably. Instructional and a para.
What's
They
correct?
The correct is paraeducator.
Paraeducator.
Yeah.
So then this money would pay for instructional assistants as much as the paraprofessionals that we use in special education.
Here, do we label them as instructional aides or paraeducators? Or do we have two levels?
We have about 10 job titles, so.
What?
We do, yeah, I'm not.
Wow. Are you serious? Are you being serious right now?
Ask Erica.
Why do we have that many?
Because some are at different levels, some of them specifically work for RSP, some of them work in SEC and.
There's bilingual, there's non-bilingual, there's RSP, there's non-RSP bilingual, there's RSP bilingual. I'm not being
But are they all
facetious.
under a category?
They're all part of the classroom support division, but there are a number of different job titles, and they all qualify under the grant that we're talking about. But they all just have different titles. There's actually a paraprofessional 3 is a very common job title. Paraprofessional 3 works in our special education program serving children with high needs in either behavior, academics, special day class setting. A paraprofessional 2 also works in our special education program, typically assigned to a more mild moderate or RSP class setting. In some cases, a one-on-one might be a paraprofessional 3 or a paraprofessional 2, just depending on the circumstance. And then we have instructional aid positions that are devoted and assigned to our reading support program that we've been running for years in this district.
This 6.47 million down at the bottom from the American Recovery Plan funds, does that have a time limit as well? Is that the 2023? 2024. Down here at the very, very bottom, you put down
Oh, I didn't
those
see
funds. Yeah.
Oh,
The funds that are in the chart, that are included with the explanations that have the page-long descriptions in your handouts,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to feel that there was some accuracy assigned to the number, but also the use. The federal American Rescue Plan funding is too new. As you all know, it
Right.
just passed. They haven't sent us any of the details. I don't want to misinform the public or the board
Yeah.
or our bargaining partners about it.
I was trying
It's
to get,
substantial funding,
Yeah.
and it's intended to last multiple years.
right, and I couldn't get anything on it, I was looking too.
Is that in addition to the money the feds sent her, or will announce they'll be sending our way? They announced that a few weeks ago, that 9 point.
So when you add up what's in this chart, which is the Esser and the Esser 2 is about 3.5 million. When you add 6.4 million, that's that $9.9 million. So it's all coming. It's just gonna get here staggered over the next couple of years. Yeah. And we don't know the exact restrictions that will apply to the additional 6.47. And there may be more state funds that come to us, and likely will be, that aren't included in this chart either.
So how do we wanna frame this conversation that we just had?
Can I add one more piece to it?
Sure, absolutely.
Just knowing that the last item on the agenda is school to prison pipeline.
Oh, we're not getting
No,
there.
I know, it's really keeping it.
Because it's 8 o'clock.
It's like, it's framing everything that we've been thinking.
Right,
Yes.
right.
And one of the problems that the Hollister School District, we've experienced a lot over the last, well, it's how I got hired that long ago. Those were my whites. But is the number of teachers that we have to hire without credentials, right? And they come in brand spanking new, they come in first year, and they're inexpensive because they're at the very bottom of that salary schedule. But we also know what is the percentage of teachers that leave the teaching profession within the first 6 years? It's like 60%, right? It's a ridiculously high turnover rate for a profession. And knowing this, if we think about using some of these funds to attract more veteran teachers who have already made it past that 6-year mark, they come in experienced, they know what they're doing, then our students aren't getting a turnover of brand new teachers who might have a lot of like energy and enthusiasm, but they lack that experience that really is able to get them to learn the standards, right? So that might be one more area that we're going, how can we attract more veteran teachers to the Hollister School District? So we can end that turnover rate, so we can get teachers who've already finished their credential program, who already have that education behind them. So it's part of that training piece.
Recruitment
Yeah, what'll get them to
and retention.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a
Because we
tough
do need to
one.
get out of that
Well, it is,
cycle.
because it's a scarce resource. I mean,
Yeah.
not many people are going into that field of study anymore because of how difficult it is to teach. And, the standards and Common Core and all this constant change and evolution to education that people can't, figure, okay, I just learned something and now I gotta learn something else. And every year, it just seems like you're learning every year. You can't land on something solid. You're never on solid footing as a teacher, it seems like, because we just, I don't know, at the state level, federal level, nobody knows what the heck they're doing, and that makes it so extremely difficult now to really feel like you're doing a great job. You've got it down and you feel good about what you're doing every day.
And the public doesn't make it easy for job security.
Right.
We have a call?
We have a caller. Would you like to take the call?
Sure.
Hi there, caller. Can you, let me see here. Can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. We can hear you.
Your name?
Okay.
If you want.
If you'd like, you can start by telling us your name and then give us your public comment.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. This is Anissa Dizon. Section. Wow, there's a lot going on here. I appreciate the discussion from all stakeholders. I know personally as a board member, we always get fingers pointed to us, right? And you are faced with some really difficult decisions and challenges in moving forward through a pandemic of all things. And so I just wanted to just kind of reflect. I shared this quote with a few of my colleagues a while back, and it's a system in crisis is a system that is no longer relevant. And that's what we're looking at coming back to school, right? How do we do school? Because now we know that what we did has to be revamped. And so this reflection, part of the process is crucial. And hearing from all stakeholders is crucial. And so I just wanted to give my own 2 cents here, that just where we go from here is like, we have to decide where the change is needed, right? We have to continue to have those high expectations. We have to make sure that all of our cultures and identities are affirmed. Definitely that sense of belonging that was talked about today, the social emotional component, supporting the relationships with our teachers and our families and our students. But just, more importantly is that we, as a leader at a school site, it's not the programs, it's not the activities, it's not even the technology. The most important instructional resource is what? The teacher, right? It's always the teacher. And so as a leader, we, as one of the many leaders in our district, we have to develop the skills of the teacher, not necessarily the program. And so, again, I appreciate the time that you are putting into this discussion, and I know that we can't make everyone happy, but completely trust your leadership. Your superintendent you've heard me say this before, I don't know how he thinks. He's got all those tabs open in his mind, and I know that he has the best interest at heart, and I know that his actions reflect that. And so I know it's hard, but trust your team. And also, how do we get everyone to work at full capacity, right? Either our school site, whether it's a board member, whether it's our leadership team, whether it's our unions. Failing is the learner's best friend. So we're all in this together. And I'm gonna read this one quote that I'm just really inspired with, especially right now in my role at Rancho Santana. And it's by Chadwick Boseman. And he says, fearlessness means taking the first step, even if you don't know where it will take you. It means being driven by a higher purpose rather than by applause. It means knowing that you reveal your character when you stand apart, more than when you stand with the crowd. And so, board of directors, I'm with you. We're with you. Trust your leadership. Ask us for help, and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Anissa.
Thank you.
Diego, I think you could add Anissa to the principal's,
She gets the $10,000.
Ándale. We're all gonna be going.
They all want the
Tell them time's up.
Hello, sí, Mr. Hello?
Okay, well, we're down to our last 5 minutes. Oh. Frank Colson.
Do you wanna propose that we extend it if you are all
I don't
okay with that?
Well, I don't know, how do you guys?
Continue the conversation?
I can't.
It's past getting tired. I would rather meet another time, because we can't even get to the second part of our.
I just wanna close and give everybody an opportunity, whatever
Yeah,
discussions
I think
we
that's.
have now, you know,
we have
that
a
hasn't been said.
We do have a caller, okay?
Hi caller, if you would like to please introduce yourself and then everyone in the room can hear you.
Hi, I just had perhaps a statement in the sense of, I don't know what it was. I'm hearing opposite things.
We can hear you, dear.
Okay, I think my concern is that we're 6 to 7 weeks at the end of the school year.
I lost her. If she calls back, we'll put her back in.
Okay.
Well, the board meeting has 3 minutes.
There she is.
Ask for her name, please.
I did,
Maybe she doesn't want to say.
I did. Hi there, we can hear you again.
Oh, thank you. So I guess my concern is that we're 6 to 7 weeks at the end of the school year, and we have yet to hear what our children's school schedule is gonna be come Monday, and it's Tuesday. How is that, after a year of a pandemic, was there not a plan in place? It's a little mind-boggling that there's a lot of working parents. I'm lucky enough to be one that I'm able to attend either or, but you have parents scrambling at this point. Okay, sorry, the sound is way off. You just have parents scrambling, trying to figure out and not knowing what the plan is for Monday. And I feel that there was another parent that called in earlier, and yet there was this, she had a statement which was completely valid, and there wasn't an answer to it. I don't know where are the answers, basically.
What school does your child go to?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What school does your child go to?
HDLA.
Well, I would suggest that you speak to Mrs. Ruiz, and you should have received all kinds of information from Mrs. Ruiz as to what the schedule is for Monday. Everybody has received emails and letters home as to what will happen on Monday.
I mean, I'll definitely reach out, but I'm very alert and aware of email, class tags, and there's.
Well, I don't know what to say, but everybody has been emailed and has had mail come to the home addressing what will happen on Monday. So I would suggest then that you give Mrs. Ruiz a call tomorrow and work out what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but tonight's meeting is not about next week.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Tonight's meeting is not about next week. This is a special board meeting about utilizing funds for the next 3 years.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just curious if, and I haven't checked, I mean, just to that point, just thinking as far as communication, if we can put or maybe it's already on there, I haven't checked on our district website, like a standard, like, we're returning, please check with your principals about, every school is gonna have a different way, so maybe just like please, if you haven't received anything by now, check in with somebody.
We can definitely do that.
Thank you. English and español, por favor.
Yeah. Our new website is bilingual, so you just toggle Spanish. Everything is translated for you.
Thank you.
Okay, since this is our ending time, we left off with in-person instruction. I would like to kind of close down where we are going to start when we get another meeting going. We will start with unassigned ending balance. And possibly Mr. Ochoa will have more information at the next time we meet. Obviously, we did not get to any of the school to prison pipeline. And there also might be agenda items that CSEA or ESTA might want to add. But I do want to come to a consensus that maybe it's a consensus, and that's why I want to make sure that we are thinking about a cultural shift in how we deal with our paraprofessionals and how they're assigned every year to school and to teachers, and that we are going to try to make it a little bit more of a family idea that the kids can count on. And see, we get into some funding issues, which has always been part of the problem with the paraprofessionals. So I don't know, this is something that has to be worked out financially, has to be worked out. We can't make any grand statements here, but I think it's, something that all of us need to be thinking about as a cultural shift. I like the idea because it does fit in with the school to prison pipeline, that the kids can feel security. They feel that when they go from second grade to third, they know who's gonna be, there's always gonna be shifts in personnel, but you know what I mean, that there'll be some continuity. Am I understanding that? Say yay or nay if I'm on the wrong.
The CSEA isn't here, right?
No, and we're not making any decisions, but I just wanted to see if I'm gathering the right.
Continuity and personnel is important for students.
That, yes, for the children to grow with that kind of family kind of support idea as they go through. Yes.
Going back to professional development.
Yes.
And just as we, provide that time for our teachers to prepare.
Yeah, and that was
for
one of
the
the
beginning of
redays.
school, I would like, if they are going to be assigned a para-educator, that they know who that para-educator is, and meet with them and do some
And get
actual
the support
training
they need.
and develop what that interaction will look like for the year. Because I don't want an aide or para-educator to show up and you didn't have a time to really establish what those expectations look like. Because to have an effective year on both sides, you want to have that conversation just like we're having it now. We want to be able to establish that trust and the ability to know where the needs are going to be as far as the individual. This is what I can come with, what my abilities are, and what I would need support in to help you as a teacher, right? And our job as the district is to provide them with that professional development to make sure you have the best person in your classroom to support you.
Everybody I just want to thank everybody for showing up and participating and being honest with your comments and, you know, I thought it was 2 hours well spent. We got a lot of very good dialogue. And obviously, we got a lot more to do. But you know what? We've got the time. I mean, we're starting early enough. Anybody, would we want to like try this in a couple of weeks or, because we have to kind of move on this, don't we? Or,
We have an April board meeting.
yeah, but we don't have time in a board meeting to do this.
No, it has to be another special board
Would
meeting
it have to be?
for this type of conversation.
It's the board's discretion. I want to also advise the board, we have a required LCAP process that doesn't involve what's going on here.
Right.
It requires doing strategic gathering of information from all stakeholders that represent the entire district, including our migrant path, our ELAP, our school site councils, and the district's parent advisory council, in addition to both bargaining units, which one of the two is not being represented.
Right.
Administration, and then the board yourselves. So this is somewhat adjacent to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the board's discretion to decide. You can hold a meeting,
Well, why
as long
don't
as
you,
there's 24 hours notice.
why don't you look at your calendar and then get back to the.
I'm always available.
I know.
I'm always available.
But why don't you look at your calendar and see what works and then get us out some dates and we'll work from there?
Can we include, if we're gonna do this CSEA again?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
I thought they were gonna be.
They were going to, but they
Yeah.
couldn't make it.
Oh, okay.
so we want to make sure that CSEA is with.
And is there a way that's, I'm sorry, it's Lisa here. Am I close enough?
Yeah.
There you are.
Okay. Is somebody going to capture kind of what we talked about to make sure that we're all clear on what was said and what was heard and suggested, and so that we don't forget what we covered? Because although you mentioned a couple of things, like also brought to the table was taking a look at schools class size. And I don't want that. I mean, I'm just afraid that some of what we discussed tonight might fall off the radar, if you will. And then we can, let everybody involved kind of vet it, if you will. So that's my suggestion.
Well, I have class size down. I have hiring not new teachers, but teachers in the 6-year category. We talked about the virtual summer school.
I'd like, request for future agenda items, I'd like that as a future agenda item, that we discuss that, or move on that.
Move on.
It says request for move on virtual summer school,
Okay, so,
or at least have a discussion about that.
well, maybe can that be on our
That could
April
be added to our regular
board meeting? That could be on our April board meeting. Does that need discussion with Hester before we do that, or?
Like summer school, yeah.
Just summer school.
Yeah, it's already, summer school's already in the contract, it's done.
So we don't have to negotiate that, all right, so we can do that one. But, for this kind of a meeting though, I think we need to continue to discuss, this idea of
Well, I would like to propose that we have another special board meeting to continue the conversation on the items that we weren't able to complete tonight.
well, the one is lower class size, and I don't know if you would be able to put something together by the April meeting, that might be May, or?
Well, I think what, I guess I want the board to give me direction here, so is what you're saying is that you want me to evaluate the cost of lowering class size district-wide? Because in doing so, what you're predetermining is what you wanna put into the LCAP, and we haven't gotten feedback from parents.
Yeah,
So I'm concerned that comments that are made tonight will result in me engaging in work with our business department, our enrollment department, our human resources department, and our special ed department, and our facilities department, when we haven't gone through a process of
yeah, I
asking
agree,
all the
that we don't wanna
stakeholders
do that.
what their feedback is.
Right, and I don't think I was asking for any kind of a movement, just that we make sure that we kind of capture everything, because we're still in the brainstorming session, right? And we're not
Yeah.
done.
I don't think we should go down that road
It's
yet.
about note-taking, not about making any moves. or
Right,
anything.
no, we're good, let's not do that yet.
Because the LCAP is starting the
Right,
process.
right, we're going, thank you for keeping us in our lane.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the rest of the items that we
Yeah, we need to
get
do,
to,
That we're
I
already on.
that I propose that we have
yes,
another special board meeting
Right,
to
to
continue the
finish.
conversation
Finish the discussion.
on the items that we did not get to tonight.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was hoping to do more on the school to prison.
Oh, yeah,
pipeline
well, that's
than we did.
definitely we need to do,
And include CSE.
yes,
And what?
Include CSE.
okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for
everyone.
coming.